One of the things I like about art and music is that you can have a good argument with people, you can have a great discussion, and because it's not brain surgery or rocket science or politics, you could have an opinion and someone can have a different opinion and you could argue it out and you could see the world in terms of aesthetics, in terms of beauty, in terms of good and bad. You could see someone else's point of view and you could sort of grade it. That's one of the great things about art. The reason why I have this channel is to talk about art and music, especially music which is a little bit esoteric and doesn't get talked about in the mainstream. And in doing that, I like for conversations to happen. Recently, I interviewed John McCracken, who is the guy who ran the pledge campaign for Allan Holdsworth. Now, John will back me up here, is that John has been emailed me for about 6 months to do an interview. And to be quite honest, I wasn't interested. I couldn't see any more I could do on Allan Holdsworth. I was wrong. But I couldn't see I'd done so many Allan Holdsworth videos, and the interviews on this channel never do that well. I was more interested in pursuing the ideas that I've got, but he kept going on, kept asking for an interview, kept sending me material through. And I started to think that there might be some utility in looking at where Allan ended up at the end of his life. Now, why is that? Well, I'm going to preface what I say with a few things that you need to realize. I am not a journalist, right? If you go on to the description of this video, you will see that it says that I am under no compulsion to tell the truth. I will say whatever I want to say on this channel, and you have to understand that, right? Because sometimes I use irony, sometimes I use satire, sometimes there's comedy going on. So within all of that, I might not always be telling the truth. When I interview someone, I might choose to be hostile to them, which I don't think I'm ever going to really be like that. But most people that come on the channel, I'm going to let them have their say. I'm going to back them up with my own opinions about it, and I feel I have a right to do that as well. If you look at the name of this channel, it doesn't say classic album review, and it does not say the prog corner. I'm under no compulsion to do any type of thing on this channel. I'm not here to do reviews or to say this or that. This is the Andy Edwards channel, and I can do, and this was deliberate, whatever I want on this channel. That's very important to me because I'm a creative person. I love to create. I love to create videos for my channel. I love to be able to come on and do all the different things I do. That's part of the fun. Anything that impinges on people's self-expression and creativity, I'm not so fond of. So I'm a free speech advocate. But if I wanted, I could delete every single comment out of this channel that comes up that disagrees with me. But I don't, because I believe that the conversation is really worth having. Sometimes it strays into politics and people do get upset then. But I'm very interested in joining the dots between art, aesthetics, music, and politics so people could see how that works. So I preface all that to make you realise that when I did that interview with John McCracken, I could do that interview however I want. I can say whatever I want. I can present it in whatever I want. Now, the reason why I agreed to chat with John McCracken is because of something that I have stated on another video I've done specifically about how I feel about Allan Holdsworth. Because I thought all these people are having a go at me at the moment about this. And I actually was just presented John's point of view. So I've done a very personal opinion piece about Allan's genius. And that's on another video, and that should be out by now, so you can go and check that out. Here, I'm going to directly answer back some of the criticism I've got, some specific criticism, and see if I can at least show a little bit of balance to this, and try and explain the motivation by saying some of the more contentious things I said and why I said them. Now, the thing that John McCracken was happy to talk about is something that in the industry everybody knew and everybody discussed endlessly. And it was the fact that towards the end of his life, Alan had a drink problem. Now, that's a fact. If you want to say it's not a fact, fair enough. If you think I'm in the wrong morally for wants to bring that up, you're entitled to that opinion. Why would I want to do that? To besmirch Alan, who I have done a million videos and I think is the greatest musical genius of the latter part of the 20th century, that I have championed in every way I can, right? Whereas I love this bloke. I think he seems to have a wonderful personality, very funny, and a brilliant musician. So why would I want to besmirch him? I don't. What it is that in my time in this business, I have known quite a lot of people die from drinking alcohol. Some of them you could term as alcoholics. Some of them you wouldn't have said they were alcoholics. They might say they were a binge drinker or they were just like a party animal. Two people very close to me have died of drink. One of the greatest musicians I ever worked with, a guy called David Woodhouse, who was just a phenomenal musician and a lovely guy, died at 30 years old because of drink. And that affected me at the time quite deeply and still does. 2 years ago, my brother-in-law at 50 died from drink. In 2009, I became aware that I was having problems, as you do, and I'm a creative person. And I noticed there were two types of drinkers in the music business. There were ones that stayed at home all depressed and just drank. And then there were the other ones that just threw their troubles away by going down the pub, seeing all their mates and drinking. I started off by being the latter. I was going down the pub, seeing a whole bunch of people I didn't really know very well, and just drinking. And I would wake up in the morning and I was just eager to get down there. So if it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was doing that every single day. And I found that in the mornings, if I couldn't go out and meet people, then I would start to have a little bit of drink in the morning. So in 2009, I decided wisely to stop drinking, okay? And I did, and I haven't touched any alcohol since 2009, all right? So that is a personal moral opinion. Someone like Alan, right, you could see, I believe he dealt with it pretty well because he got to 70 years old. He's not like dead at 30 and 50 like my two close friends. And the multitude of people who are dying in their 40s and 50s, maybe 60 that I've known in the wider realm. Plus, those people who haven't died from it that I know have drink problems cause endless hell for those around them, basically. And when you talk to them about it, they deny it. And the people around them they drink with deny it too. And so when I see people online saying, you should not be saying this about Alan, I'm like, that's the worst thing. That there is that moral position that actually makes the world worse, right? Do I need to explain this anymore? Alan's a brilliant musician. He was a clever guy. He drank too much, right? He died relatively young. He was 70. He wasn't, that young. But for the last 20 years of his life, it's arguable that he made bad decisions. Now, the thing with John McCracken is he put his point of view across. There is a letter that Allan Holdsworth's daughter published where it's called the Pledge Manifesto. I've read it many a time. All right. Now, that letter is Alan's side of this, okay? And he was public about it and he put that out. I have no skin in this game. All I did was present John's point of view, okay? If somebody contacted me and said they've got the opposite point of view, they are welcome to come on the channel and I will be as friendly and let them say their thing and back it up where I think it's correct in exactly the same way. And I imagine that whichever side you're on, maybe John is some sort of evil, music manager, which I don't believe. I believe his intention was to try and get some Allan Holdsworth albums and who understood how Pledge worked and wanted to do that. Most of us are glad that Alan got the money, I think, because he was able to survive off that. If he was drinking in the way John says, then a lot of that stuff in that manifesto that Alan published could be true, but also it could be that he's seeing it in a certain way. None of this really matters to me, right? The side that people are on is not where I'm coming from with this, right? What I'm interested in is what all the normal people out there who Allan Holdsworth fans are in, is trying to get an idea of who Alan was and what made him so incredible, all right? So I have started this video by laying those groundworks down that's where I'm coming from. Now let's go and have a look at some of these comments. Now, I haven't had so many comments on the actual channel, but outside of the channel, it has been quite fierce. There is a Facebook group called the Unreal Allan Holdsworth group, and I think this one is linked in some way. I don't know much about this group. It's linked in some way to Alan's family, right? A post was put out about my video and another video by Sore Hands, who is a classical guy that did a sort of comedy video where he came at Alan from a sort of classical point of view. I did watch it. He was pretty ignorant. It was quite funny. You know, he just sort of showed himself up, and I think he realised that as he went on, right? So when they refer to the other video, it's the Sore Hands video, right? So I'm not going to name any names. I haven't got the names here. I've just got the text. So the original post was this. Hi all. I just wanted to post something here to address some recent videos are about our star, Allan Holdsworth. I have recently seen two videos, one by a young guy making some ludicrous opinions, which is his right, even if it shows a profound ignorance of the subject of Allan Holdsworth, and another recent one in which an interview between a fan, that's me, I'm a fan, and a producer who worked with Alan in his later years. I found both videos to be distasteful, sometimes unfair, not just to Alan, but others who have done amazing work in the Holdsworth fan community. Right, so I'm just going to go through this, all right? Straight off, there is this worship, the star, Alan's the star, which is fine because that's what we're here for. They love this guy, and this guy is like, he's morally outraged by what I've said and what John said and what this other guy's, you know, that Alan's been besmirched. He is like, you know, he is like the gallant gentleman running to the lady's aid. You know, he's coming in like that. And it's all, which is fine. This is what the internet's all about, you know. Sore Hands shows a profound ignorance. Is that ignorance really profound? Is a guy that can play like that on guitar, who's classically trained, who's got that sort of knowledge of music, and he's looking at someone that comes at music from a different angle. Would you say his ignorance is profound? I would say that's nonsense, right? This is straight off nonsense. Then he says that it is an interview between a fan and a producer. I am a fan. I'm an Allan Holdsworth fan, massive fan, but I would class myself as a musician and teacher. So that is denigrating me down a little bit. No problem with that, but I'm just going to point it out before I really start to put the my two penneth in. I found both videos to be distasteful. Who cares? Sometimes unfair. Who's it unfair to? Alan. It's Alan. He says it's not just to Alan, but others who have done amazing work in the Holdsworth fan community. That's an issue I have, right? This fan community, I'm very aware of. I've known about it and been on the edges of it for years, right? And I've also been on the edges of other fan communities for progressive rock, for some of the bands I've been in, for other bands I've been associated with. I've been on the edge of the Robert Plant fan community. I've been on the edge of the progressive rock fan community, right? I've been on the edge of the drummers fan community, right? And these places contain people, in my opinion, who are just normal people, don't necessarily understand music like professional musicians, and that's not an issue. But they carve out a little bit of status by having this little group on Facebook, and they look at it and go, oh my God, I got 1,000 members in this. And so they tend to come in and say, this is our thing and this is how it should be. And they start to control that. And then they sort of, they meet together and they all know each other. And when you have a group like that, or a cabal as I would call it, right, they start to have certain ideas. And I feel that they get a little bit totalitarian in their view. And I see that they will band together and they will say, we don't like that person, cancel that person, get rid of that person. We love that person. We will not let anything bad be said about that person. And then they control it. They control the gateways. Real artists, right? If they were to come into, say, an Allan Holdsworth forum, they have to come with their caps docked to go, and now I've done a track and I've got some music here. Could I put it on your channel? No, you cannot. We have rules on the channel, blah, blah, blah. It's all like this all the time. And these people, as the internet has emerged, have got in control now. And so you have a situation where major artists are having to kowtow to some little tin pot Hitler who has set themselves up with a YouTube channel or an Instagram group or a group like this, or a forum of some sorts in which they gossip all day long and say whatever they want in the manner I've just described. Now, some of these people are absolutely fine. They're lovely, and some of them aren't, because that's human nature, right? So when he starts to say that the others who have done amazing work, what's this work? What is this work of which they speak? There's a big factory, looking after Allan Holdsworth's legacy. Who is dead? Did he ask for this factory? Right? Do you know what Alan's opinion would be of this factory of people? Right? The Allan Holdsworth fan community. They're all there, and they've been besmirched by me. And he's going to come and stand up. Who the hell do you think you are? Right? This guy is faking outrage right here. And I've seen it a million times before. I've not seen it as just some outside punter. I've not seen it as a fan. I've seen it as a musician that works in these bands, has albums coming out, and knows how this works, right? The thing I find most mind-boggling about their videos is that these people share their opinions, which again, they are free to do. Keep saying that, mate. However, they also admit that they usually know very little, if anything, about their subject, or show their staggering ignorance and stupidity in their discussions, right? Okay, so I think anybody who watches my YouTube channel will know that I've got a certain style, and I have to be very thankful for those who are part of the Allan Holdsworth fan community. That most of the comments will go, well, no, Andy isn't ignorant, and he does this, and he's got a sense of humour, and you shouldn't take it with a pinch of salt. This is what he does, this is what he does. And many people supported me. And when I first saw it, I thought, I'm not going to put a comment up, I'm not even going to say anything about this, right? Because there are people there doing it for me. I don't need to. But I then felt that people were judging me on John's version of Allan Holdsworth. Nobody did watch all the old videos. I've got a huge video where I go through his discography in great detail, which has had many, many views. And in that, you will hear my love and respect for Allan Holdsworth, which is immense, right? But I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to cover things up, right? And I'm not going to cover things up for the reasons I've said, because I actually have quite a moral standpoint that people who try and cover up people who drink and cause problems because of their drink, that needs to be called out. Now, John McCracken might have done many things, but I believe wholeheartedly that he could have well have been one of the few people around him that was calling his drink out. Not like the fan community that were just there and were just, as everyone I know who knows Allan said, there were so many people that would grab him at 11 o'clock and take him to a pub and buy him drinks all day and listen to all his stories and bask in the glory of being in the presence of Allan Holdsworth. And they aided this, right? And so that's a serious thing. Now, in terms of my ignorance as he pulls out this, what do you want to know? Okay? Allan Holdsworth was born in 1946 in Yorkshire. Right, he travelled down to London in the late 60s and joined a band called Higginbotham's Wrench. They had a deal out. It wasn't particularly successful, but from there he wheedled his way into the sort of jazz fusion scene that was burgeoning at that time. He hooked up with Ian Carr's Nucleus. He played with Tempest and eventually got the gig with Soft Machine. An ally of his at that time was a guitarist called Ollie Holswell, who was also playing in a very similar style and in a sort of legato style. And they both were pioneering a certain way of playing the guitar. Ollie Holswell, who, like Allan, was also the life of soul of the party, died of drinking drugs very young, right? And his legacy has not been protected like Allan's was, because Allan then went on to join Soft Machine, and on the album Bundles, that guitar solo on Hazard Profile launched him into the world. He then did the same thing that a fellow John McLaughlin, Yorkshire-born jazz fusion guitarist, did, as he went to America and joined Tony Williams' Lifetime. He was in the Lifetime quite early on, but he contributed to 2 albums by Tony Williams, which would be Believe It and $1 Million Legs. He then bummed around as a session musician. Now, the thing is, I can carry on like this, and I haven't planned this. That is off the top of my head, right? So when we came to 16 Men of Tain, right, I did a very English joke of like, well, how many men was it again? Was it 40? Well, how many was it? You know, and he laughed and went, it was 16. I said 7, right? That was what you call a joke, all right? That was me being a silly Englishman. But I hope that you might say, Andy doesn't know everything about Allan Holdsworth, but to call me ignorant of Allan Holdsworth, I promise you, cross my heart and hope to die, that the information I just gave you was off the top of my head, right? And I'm pretty sure I could write a sizable biography of Allan with a critique with the musicians that he worked with, all that type of stuff, the release dates, off the top of my head. So to call me ignorant, right, I think is untrue. Now, and then he said the stupidity in the discussions, that's his personal opinion. We'll find out who's been stupid here, right? For instance, in the interview video mentioned, which happened to Allan Holdsworth, both people criticise and mention the name Brett Stein and the amazing 5-year work he spent understanding Allan, right? I have another issue. It's only my personal opinion, and I have stated this in greater detail elsewhere, right? Allan didn't like this. I have an interview where he described people who copy his style and try and work out what he's doing as obnoxious. He's dead now. And so people are transcribing his work and putting it out, and people are buying it, and they are making profit from that, which I have no problem with. And there is a need, and people want to know. You know, I want to know what the notes that Allan's playing, right? But that is countered by the fact that Allan said he thought it was obnoxious. If you don't believe me, the other video that's just come out a few days ago, I have that interview in there. So I think I'm in my rights, even though I might be ignorant and stupid, but I'm not so ignorant not to know about that interview, because I watched every single Allan Holdsworth interview and I know what he has said. He wasn't into this. Now, there is a school of thought, and I am with that transcribing, learning the notes, learning what people played, learning all the phrases does not help you to become a great musician in terms of a creative improviser. Of course, you're going to amass knowledge and you'll have a whole bunch of stuff that you can draw upon. But in the end, if you study what Allan Holdsworth played, you will only ever be playing what Allan Holdsworth played and not what you're playing. This is an absolute valid criticism of this. And people like Brett Stein, and that was the only person I could think of. There's a whole bunch of these people that hold court, you know, people who transcribe solos, they go on and I know in the background, they are also pulling down other guitar players, and their forums are quite toxic. I have explained this and gone on to this on this video as well that I've had come out. So I've answered this elsewhere, and I think I can pretty much at least prove that I'm entitled to an opinion on this, and it's neither stupid nor ignorant. This guy needs to answer why it's okay for people to make a living publishing books, right, which are transcriptions of what Allan did, right? Now, Allan, in his lifetime, put out transcriptions of his solos, right? He did that with the REH video. I don't think he wanted to do that. I love the REH video because I feel like Alan's almost obscuring the facts on that video in a very comical and Alan way. He's presenting stuff which is more of a riddle than it is anything else. I've also read the Uncommon Chord book and gone through that. So the argument against me was say, well, Alan did do this and he was involved in stuff in magazines, right? Fair enough, but that was Alan having a position like me about my channel. I'm totally aware that I can have an opinion on my channel and then next week contradict it if I want. Alan can do that. But looking at what Alan says, I don't know what he would feel about unauthorized versions of this from other people. Other people saying what he did. Right? This actually is an important point. Right? Brett Steiner has a perfect right to it. He's not evil. He hasn't done anything wrong. I would champion him. If he wanted to come on and push his book on here, I would for him because that's what I do here. And I probably wouldn't push back too hard on him because I don't think he's doing anything wrong. But in terms of the legacy of Alan, if you're going to get all like hoity-toity and high and mighty like this and start saying ludicrous and profound and all this type of stuff, then you better get your facts right because that does not add up, right? And yet at the start of the interview, the idiot host, that's me now, he's decided to go for me. Not John, he's calling me an idiot host, right? And this guy thinks, after coming in all high and mighty and moral, he thinks that he can now start describing me as an idiot. This guy is describing me as an idiot, right? I would never do this to anybody, right? I might say Allan Holdsworth drank, but I would never call him an idiot. I would never call any of these people idiots unless I was doing some sort of comedy routine. But somebody I don't really know, random like this, I would never call him an idiot. It's ridiculous, this is. He says he's a fan of Allan Holdsworth, says he met him but couldn't even get correct the name of Alan's most famous work, 16 Men of Tain. It's not his most famous work whatsoever. I would say probably it's the UK album. Most people I know, it's Nevermore and In the Dead of Night. I would say of his albums that he made, Metal Fatigue would be up there. So that's a load of nonsense. And I wouldn't even care about that, except that this guy is coming out so righteous, right? And he said, the host called it 7 Men of Torn. No, I didn't. I called it 7 Men of Tain. And then he puts, fucking dickhead. That's how he's talking about me. This is the toxicity that I was trying to point out that exists on these little gated communities that are out there championing the artistic work and genius of the musicians who are now dead and have no say over it. Right, now you will see that there will be a set of rules in this forum and those rules will be used to shut certain people up. After this post went for a certain long and then the guy who runs it went, no more comments. So he just decides that. I would never do that on one of my channels, but he just decides it. It is his thing. He can do what he wants, right? He can do whatever he wants on here. I'm never going to say he's not, but I'm going to call it out. Because the next post when he said, no one is allowed to mention John McCracken on this channel. As soon as I hear that, I know what we're into. Totalitarian control, right? Someone can speak, someone can't speak. Now, I'm sure there is things that you don't insult people, you don't call them a fucking dickhead, right? You don't do that. I'm sure that's in there, but this will still be up. Because this guy is part of this system, right? And then he has a list. So my point is, 1, don't waste your time in capitals on these garbage rakers and fakers just using Alan's name and fame to get their channel some of its hits and points, right? That is a gross inaccuracy, right? This channel got its hits and points by critiquing jazz and doing top 10 prog, right? Now, I would love to know the gross amount of Allan Holdsworth albums, jazz fusion albums and prog albums that I have sold for these people, unlike this guy, right? How much people have come to my channel, right? Which you've got to understand, the viewers here is 100 times more than this little forum is, okay? I'm here to call out this sort of gatekeeping. If you are going to have this little place like this, you have a duty to ensure there's free speech, a liberal approach to what people are saying, letting everybody have a fair say, and don't let people just call people swear words and names, because although that's free speech, it's uncivil, and you don't let that happen, and you call it out. I wouldn't ban him, I wouldn't take that off, but I would come on and say, can you curb your language about Andy Edwards, right? Because you don't know him, right? People here like him, they watch his YouTube, some people hate him, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm 57 years old, I've made 100 albums in my time, I've written for magazines, I've run music courses and colleges, I've worked as a master clinician, doing all the stuff. Now, that might mean nothing to this guy, right? But if I came across somebody else like that, even if I disagreed with them, I would give him some respect. And that is really what I'm calling out here. This guy is pretending that it's me that lacks respect for friendly interview with John McCracken, right? Where I let him have his say and I put my points of view across. And I was a bit anti the sort of, let's not talk about the fact that Alan got drunk every single day, right? This is ridiculous, right? Point number 2, if you watch it and find these people are frauds and fakers, just hit the thumbs down so the algorithm pushes it down to move on. This is the mob cancellation thing that's going on. He's called me out as, what was it? A fraud and a faker. So what have I faked? What's fraud? What did I say that was fraud? It was either fact or my opinion. Where's the fake and the fraud in my videos? Where? But he's calling people out. You could see this is totalitarian, and I hate that, you see. I hate it when people gang up and they think, we've got our little forum here. Everybody go over and go and click on Andy's down because he said something we don't like. Now, if people were to start to do that, and my channel did go down, then that would affect me. It would affect my living. It would affect my family. It would cause all sorts of stress. They think this is justified because I said something about Allan Holdsworth they didn't like. And that's the mentality that is driving this planet to bloody extinction. Can't you see that? And that's why this is serious, and that's why I'm doing this here, because I have to call this out. This is intolerant and illiberal, right? He has got a perfect right to do it. They have got a perfect right, but I'm not going to try and cancel them. I'm not going to say go over there and do that. If anyone goes over there, you won't be able to comment on it because they've shut it down anyway. They've shut down any comment, probably because there was too many people going, oh, Andy's all right, actually, if you watch his channel, right? If you are going to make a video about someone who has actually achieved far more than you ever will do, in capitals, do your research and understand your subject matter well. Right, I am not a journalist. I will do whatever I want on my channel. I will talk about things I know about. I will talk about things I don't know about. I will do whatever I want, right? You cannot tell me what to do. Do you understand? You cannot tell me what to do, right? I am going to completely ignore this. You do not understand what my YouTuber's channel is about. You do not understand me, and you haven't done the research on my style and what this is about, which has attracted far more followers than this has, right? That, and I'm not trying to say, you know, have a big dick competition with them, but it's the lack of respect. I would have shown them respect. I've known about the toxicity, not just this, but in so many forums like this and certain YouTubers, and I've known it's there, and I've been on the other side, right? And this idea of them having their little power like Hitler's and saying, right, go and push the thumbs down, to try and hurt Andy, try and harm his channel, right? What you can do is just switch off. Right, I would get rid of the thumbs down thing on YouTube. It's just AIDS toxicity. Right, number 3. If you're going to make a video about someone who has actually, oh, I've done that one, sorry. It's just my advice, but when there are still so many out there who don't know Alan's brilliance and beautiful musical expression, it sucks for them to get misinformed and have bad impressions, blah, blah, blah. Right, this guy has done nowhere near what I have in terms of promoting and pushing Allan Holdsworth. That's what I'm here to do, right? And I one of the things that deeply upsets me, and you can see this if you watch the film Round Midnight, the Bertrand Tavernier film, where they do a sort of, Dexter Gordon plays a sort of mishmash of Bud Powell, I would say, and a few other jazz musicians that went out to Paris, France, and lived there and follows his life. And this guy's bums around. He's got all these little gigs. As soon as he dies, again from drink, when the character dies, they have this huge concert for him. This story goes over and over again. And I can't help but look at this and think, look at this. That's forums there. My videos there. I interviewed John McCracken. I thought nobody would watch it. It was more for my own interest. And it gets tens of thousands of views. The interest of Alan now he's dead. It's just such a shame. Because I would go to see him and there would be like 30 people in the room. It's just such a shame. And none of us have any say over it. Okay? That's why I wanted to make the video I did. I did it yesterday. It's up now, and it's my personal opinion. I go into my own mental health battles. I go into other players that have been pushed down by these toxic types. I go into why people are interested in whether Alan drunk or whether he didn't drunk. I explored his genius. I've tried to do all these things to get into what this really is about in a deep and intellectual way, right? He finishes up, as well as others in our community who have honoured Alan and furthered his work in a respectful and professional manner, unlike these doofus dingbats. Just my 2 cents, right, blah, blah, blah. Now, there's a few answers that come in here, and there's a couple of things that I think that I want to also pick up on. Because it's sort of, this actually, it sort of shows a more general criticism I get that I feel that I should counter. Now, when I'm countering this, you've got to understand, I'm going to counter it, right? And people can counter the counter and we can have a discussion. I started that with the channel. This guy, as far as I'm concerned, that guy is so self-important and self-righteous. I'm not going to call him a doofus or an idiot or a fucking dickhead. Right? And I hope, whatever you think, and whether you think I'm right or wrong, at least we can get that down. I just find it absolutely ill-mannered. Sorry. Then some guy said, I saw another video with that Andy fellow, and by his own admission, he produces rage bait. I'd like to find the thing where I've even used the term rage bait, right? I use the term clickbait, and I use it in an ironic way. We'll get onto that in a minute. That other young fellow is obviously rage bait. That's the sore hands. Yeah, he's a YouTuber. That's how you get views on YouTube. You know, you watch it, you have his opinion, you get wound up, you disagree or you agree, you put it in the comments. And if you step back, you think you could have been doing something else there, like, you know, picking your toes or something like that. But you didn't. You chose to do that because that's your entertainment. That is what YouTube is. I am providing entertainment here. When I look at other YouTubers who are trying to be all moral and not ill-mannered and all that stuff that he accused me of being, I go, well, their videos are boring, right? I want to make videos that entertain, and YouTube is a genre, and these, what I call clickbait videos, that's like a genre. Now, everyone else does it. What I do is I lampoon it, and I take the mickey out of it. This started with my top 10 biscuits video. That's when this started. Up until then, I was a proper YouTuber, just doing the normal thing everyone else does. And then I got wound up with this idea of everyone criticising me. I'm thinking, you're coming here for the top 10s. You like the top 10s, and then you criticise me for doing the top 10s. Right, let's just show how stupid the top 10s, even though I do them, right? And that's what I'm doing, right? Let's just show how stupid they are, but also show why they're entertaining. So let's get really angry about different types of biscuits. And of course, all the people who are clever, because of course, you lot who watch the channel on the whole, the proper fans here, and I'm going to kiss your bottoms now, but you're clever and you get it, and you get the philosophy, and you get the irony, you understand it now. And with these people, they just haven't watched the channel enough, so they don't get it. They don't see how it fits into the bigger picture. None of my videos stand alone, right? I'm a Zappa fan. It's one big piece of work that no one's ever going to be able to get their heads around, right? Then he says, they are just using a platform for the purposes of their own benefit. Angry YouTube comments for them just means engagement. If that stuff gets posted here, just click report and the mods will take it down. As for what happens on YouTube and elsewhere, I suggest ignoring it. So they've just got me down as being this toxic person. If I just appeared now on their thing, there is no worth. So all the other Allan Holdsworth videos that have promoted him, and I believe that video of John's will promote Alan. right? We really do. I think we were so respectful and in awe as Alan's talents. John said that all the way through the video. But what he's saying now is that, and it's this real modern thinking, that if another video comes of mine, which is just the 10 greatest Allan Holdsworth albums, which I must have done at some point, and someone posts it, they go, oh, that's Andy Edwards, take it down. It's absolutely ridiculous. I got one more comment that I'm going to go, and then I think I'm having enough. I might come back to this. On one end, I agree with your comments, but on the other, while I loves me some Allan Holdsworth, idolatry is bad for a reason. I agree, right? He is neither a sinner or a saint, and I think to understand him, you have to do that. So thank you for that. Alan would be for the first to agree, but these guys make their bones crapping on artists, something Alan was vocally against. We shouldn't take them too seriously. Andy Edwards didn't get a following till he started trashing artists, the 10 most overrated drummers, and he puts Buddy Rich and John Bonham on it, stuff like that. He's a troll, and that's how he built his channel. So he's real proud when he takes the piss out of a great player, right? My overrated lists, they're called overrated for a reason. When I say that Buddy Rich is overrated, I've listened to Buddy Rich since I was born. I have tons of Buddy Rich's albums. When I watch him play, my jaw hits the floor. He's one of the greatest drummers of all time, right? Is he the greatest jazz drummer of all time? I wouldn't say so. Is he the greatest big band drummer of all time? I wouldn't say so. There's people like Joe Jones that would give him, I would say, far more important. And Louis Bellson, there's so many great... He's a great drummer amongst many great drummers. He allied himself with show business, right? So he got on the television a lot, and he had a high profile because of that. And he got the reputation for being the greatest drummer in the world because he was also very flamboyant in his style. Connie Kay for the Modern Jazz Quartet is the opposite of him, but he's still a great drummer. These lists are silly. Now, the fans who buy into these artists, right, especially with drummers, they like to go around and say these drummers are the best in the world and then support it with a whole bunch of bullshit, which is not true, right? So when I am calling out Buddy Rich as being overrated, right, I'm not saying he's a bad drummer. And intellectually, it shows how stupid that they are, that they cannot see that that's what it is, even though they use the term overrated. Right, John Bonham, I absolutely love John Bonham. Right, I have been close to that legacy because of playing with Robert Plant, and I had John Bonham's kit for a moment. That drum head in the background is one of John Bonham's drum heads. I absolutely love him. Right, but again, these drummers, right, is John Bonham the greatest rock drummer of the early 70s? Is he so much greater than Ian Pace? Is he so much greater than Barrymore Barlow, or so much greater than Phil Collins or Bill Bruford? Or Brian Downey, or Tom Aldrich, or Simon Kirke, or Ginger Baker, or Lee Kerslake. Right, I could just go on and on. He was just a great drummer. But because he was in Led Zeppelin, their biggest band in the world, the people boost them up. Neil Peart, they boost them up. Daddy Carey from Tool, they boost them up, Elsewhere, I am getting it in the neck from certain people, right? Some guys done a perfectly humorous video where he's gone, I like Andy, he's a good drummer, right? And he has funny things to say, but you should never criticise Danny Carey. And then he goes into this thing, I love it, it's proper YouTubing. But the people who watch it, they then have come over to my Instagram and just swore and called me names, right? They do not understand. Danny Carey is a great drummer. He's a brilliant drummer. Is he the greatest progressive rock? Is he drummer at the round? Is he better than Matt Garsker? Is he so much greater than Gavin Harrison? No, he's just not. He's great. But for some reason, because Tool have that fan base, and that hysterical fan base, that sort of idolatry that you should grow out of by the time you're 22, has filled up this unreal thing. These middle-aged blokes need to grow up and understand the nature of what I am prodding at when I do the overrated video. I am prodding at those types of people. There's certain people that there go, Andy's just saying this is so funny, right? Look at what he's just done. I literally dress up. I blow raspberries. I pick on their hair colour, right? I say they smell. Right, that's what I do on those types of videos. I don't like him, he's fat and ginger. Right, I'm showing up a certain type of person. It's an act. Right, people find it funny and they click on it. And that's my business. Yes, Now, I didn't build my channel up with those videos. I built my channel up with top 10 videos and going on about how all jazz sounds the same. That's what built the channel up, right? I could show you the videos. The overrated ones, I did a spat of them, right? And I eventually did one where halfway through a drummer's one, if you watch it and you've watched the channel as 1.5 way through, I have a crisis and I stop and then you see me in the mirror, you know, and I'm like splashing water on my face going, why am I criticizing the drummers? I'm a drummer. These are my fellow drummers. Why would I want to do all this for? It's evil and horrible. And I have this crisis. And then you see two me's, or one of them is really criticizing and the other one's just going, why are you doing this? Right? This is a critique. This isn't just journalism. What I'm doing here is something else, right? Nobody has critiqued my overrated drummers videos like I have. I'm the one who's been the most vicious about me, right? These people are not clever enough to understand it, or they just haven't done their journalism, right? They will say, well, I'm not a journalist, I haven't watched your channel. Oh, don't put comment up then. This guy then says that he spent time on the crippling alcoholism bit is sad. He's playing politics with Allan Holdsworth's image, which should be focused on the music. And in a similar way, Sawhouse is blah, 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 right? Absolutely untrue. There is book after book on Charlie Parker, book after book on Jaco Pastorius. Bill Makowski has made a good living selling that book on Jaco. When you have a genius like this, and I've done a video that really tries to deal with this, when people want to know this stuff, and they do want to know it, and I knew, if I'd have said Allan Holdsworth is an alcoholic, and he did, you know, ruined the last few years of his life through drinking, if that'd be the name of the video, it would have got twice the views. I didn't do that. I said Allan Holdsworth, the final years. And people in the know, all these people that know, right, that was going on, went, I wonder if the guy's going to say that. And then John did say that. And it's fair. You have to understand, in the industry, everybody in the industry knows about this. Everybody loves and respects Allan. He's the greatest musician of all time. I never hear anybody that doesn't just shower absolute love on him as a musician. So many musicians must have been there who loved him, that were trying to do something like this. I don't know what sort of trauma people like Gary Husband, who was so close to, went through, you know, having such a deep musical relationship with such an incredible musician. And Gary and Allan in 1980 changed the face of improvisation completely. No one will ever credit them for this. And so there must have been a point where Gary was going, I love that man, I love what he does, but I can't work with him because of this. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just discussing it. And why should I discuss it? Because I'm neutral. I never knew Allan. I don't know these people. I know about my music. I talk about it. The musicians watch it. They're interested by it, right? Now, if this music can't be contentious, if this music can't whip up emotions, if all we could do is some totalitarian Hitler type say that we could only talk about the music because that's the way they want the world to be, if the music can't do this, it's screwed. It's dead, right? There's no more life. Switch off life support and let's just go over to AI, because it's gone. And these old guys on these things, you know, pontificating and putting the little wall around this little bit of purchase they've got on this music they like, right, is basically going to kill it, right? What I'm doing here is showing people how you can make this music interesting, how you can promote it, how you can sell the old albums, how you can hopefully put have a platform for new artists, and how we can make this still alive and interesting, right? Anybody who accuses me of what these people do about Allan Holdsworth does not get it, right? And anybody who thinks that what I'm doing here is in some way hurting or diminishing Allan's legacy, I am not at all. And I will argue that I am trying my best to promote this guy. In the old days when I started to do Allan Holdsworth videos, I know, well, why would I do this? Because nobody wants to know about Allan Holdsworth. Now, a few years later, his star has risen so much, you know. It's really interesting. Right, so I think I now have got to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, put a like on it, put your comments in the thing, and all that type of stuff. Those of you who have probably come from the Unreal Allan Holdsworth group, but I promise you they won't put this, they'll call me out on that video, whether they're going to say anything about these two videos. Now, the other video I've done is properly edited. It's got lots of graphics. I've remixed some of Alan's music. Everything I used was off camcorders, so I've just re-EQ'd it, added some effects. I've done a video effects to the thing to try and to present what he was doing in a new way. So Allan Holdsworth fans go, I haven't seen this, have I? Well, you have seen this video before, but it looks different, and I've just beefed it up, and the audio's slightly different, and it's in a certain context and things like that. And I hope it will be enjoyable for Allan Holdsworth fans. I hope it will introduce people who don't know about Allan Holdsworth. I've only used 3 pieces of his playing, but the sort of shreddy guitar solo is from a camcorder shot of a gig, which is just the most incredible guitar playing, the most incredible improvising that anybody's done ever. Now, of course, I'm very aware that Alan wouldn't want me to do that. He wouldn't want that to be there. He didn't okay that, you know. That's a topic for another discussion. All us musicians have had to get used to doing a gig. Someone films it, sticks it on YouTube. You can't control that. If someone then went and took that and put it out as an album after I died and made a profit off it, I don't think that's right. That's the difference, right? So do I need to do that video now? Can I take that idea and stretch it out over an hour? Of course I can. Thank you for watching. Do all the things you need to do. Support me, all that sort of thing. Keep the music alive. Let people have their say. Spread the love. Don't call people names, right? Don't assume things about people. Keep an open mind. Know that the music's the most important thing and that there's love in that music. And we know Alan was a good guy because you can hear it in what he did. Beautiful. Thank you for watching.